First off, I want to thank everybody for attending our session today and webinar on JD Edwards Business Intelligence, what solution is right for you. Preferred Strategies, we've been around since 2002, focusing on business intelligence and reporting solutions for JD Edwards. Since then, not very often do we try and blend a bunch of them into one session. So hopefully today doesn't turn out to be some type of train wreck here, but we do appreciate you attending, and I'll kind of get into the agenda. So first off, what we're going to do is kind of just talk about in general what are some of the challenges that a lot of JD Edwards customers focus, keeping this fairly short. But we'll kind of cover that, some of the data model complexities of JD Edwards, a little more overview about preferred strategies, who we are, and then we'll get into some of the overview of the things that we're going to touch on today. Microsoft Power Pivot is one, Oracle's BI Publisher is another, and then SAP Business Objects and Crystal Reports would be the third. And then we'll get into the live demonstration, kind of show a little bit of each of these applications in action, and then come back and put a couple recap, a couple slides in our opinion of some of the different things we're going to show. And then we'll open up for questions at the end. So as we're going along, if you come up with a question, there should be a questions panel in the little control panel of your GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar. And also if that GoToWebinar panel is taking up part of your screen, you should be able to hit a little, I think there's a white arrow and a little orange box in the upper corner that'll minimize it to a tiny bar on the side of your screen. So that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. The JD Edwards, data model complexities. There's thousands of tables in JD Edwards. Typically, they're set up with very cryptic table names: F0006 for the business unit master, F901 for the account master. Then the field names are a little cryptic as well. They're typically aliases and codes like GBOVJ for the object account, MCMCU for the business unit. So not everybody understands kind of what those underlying fields, naming conventions are. The dates are stored in a Julian format. Mounts and units are stored without decimals. And then when you get into reporting and analysis, you oftentimes want to be comparing, year-to-dates, actuals, budgets, variance, month-to-date, quarter-to-date, inception-to-date, these time-based type calculations, which really then rely on the reporting layer to help address that, because that information is not always stored in JD Edwards in that fashion. And then other things like user-defined code, descriptions, and some of the fields and the data types are not consistent across the board. Some fields have leading spaces, some have leading zeros, some may be a numeric in one JD Edwards module and a text type in another, and so there's just a lot of complexities on how to get the data into a usable format. So again, I don't know if I did a formal introduction myself. My name is Adam Krieger. I'm the founder of Preferred Strategies, and I used to work for a JD Edwards customer for about 5 years, and again in 2002 started Preferred Strategies, and we started to help JD Edwards customers learn how to write Crystal reports, and then that led into a Jumpstart package for Crystal for JD Edwards, and then as Business Objects acquired Crystal, we branched into the full offering Business Objects, and then over the years we've then added some of the Oracle offerings and Microsoft offerings that you'll see here today. One of our specialties is that we're provided flexibility that a lot of other options and alternatives and other competitors don't, which is we support both types of access to the data. So whether or not you want to connect in real time directly to your transactional JD Edwards data, our Jumpstarts support that. If you want to feed data off to a repository and then map our Jumpstart on top of a repository, we can do that, or like an operational data store, or even more of a star schema data warehouse. So those are kind of the highlights there. Again, we've created, and with our domain knowledge of JD Edwards, these Jumpstart solutions, so rather than customers having to spend thousands of hours trying to get content in the hands of users for JD Edwards from a reporting and business and intelligence or analytic perspective, we've basically built the pre-built content, spend those thousands of hours on our side to get something up and running in a matter of hours, days, or very small number of weeks, depending. So that's kind of the solution. We also provide implementation services from installation as well as consulting and training. We also, on our training, we actually perform training on your site using your JDE Edwards data. But we can also do that remotely, and we're in the process of actually building out a virtual academy as we speak for online tutorial and training. So what is Microsoft Power Pivot? So not everybody, and a lot of times when I do a presentation on Power Pivot, some people have heard of it, some people have used it a little bit. Most people, it's actually kind of a new idea and concept, and these are people that use Excel every day. So according to Microsoft, I just grabbed this from the Microsoft website, Power Pivot is a powerful data mashup and data exploration tool based on X-velocity in-memory technologies, providing unmatched analytical performance to process billions of rows at the speed of thought. To me, that means absolutely almost nothing. So I figured let's go to plan B, and maybe Wikipedia can take a better shot at it. So according to Wikipedia, Power Pivot is a free add-in to 2010 version of spreadsheet application Microsoft Excel. In Excel 2013, Power Pivot is only available for certain versions of Office. It extends the capabilities of the pivot table, data summarization, and cross-tabulation feature with new features such as expanded data capacity, advanced calculations, ability to import data from multiple sources, and ability to publish the workbooks as interactive web applications. As such, Power Pivot falls under Microsoft's business intelligence offering, complementing it with its self-service in-memory capabilities. So in a nutshell, what Power Pivot is, as it states there, it is a plugin. It's downloadable for free with Office 2010. And 2013, it's actually part of the build. So when you load up Excel 2013, all you have to do is just enable the add-in. And then behind it, it's kind of a back-end little engine. You'll see it when we get into the demo, where you can connect it to a variety of different data sources, and then instead of doing a lot of manual extracts from things like JDE Edwards or other applications, or copying and pasting subsets of data and then throwing pivot tables on it, you're actually now, with a live connection or at whatever frequency you want to refresh the data, you can then grab the data and refresh it into your spreadsheet, but you're not limited to the limitations of Excel. For instance, you could query 10 million rows of data, but then you're basically, that's your source, and then you can build pivot tables and charts and everything from that. So we'll kind of show you that. It's kind of a nice automated way, and since it's free, it's very appealing, and it's in Excel, which makes it appealing for a lot of business users as well. So that's Microsoft Power Pivot. Oracle's BI Publisher. So we're talking about BI Publisher Enterprise. There's a few different flavors of BI Publisher. There's an embedded, so for JDE Edwards customers, there's an embedded version where if you're actually going to go ahead and build out some of your front-facing forms and checks, you can actually have the JDE process have the output be a BI Publisher form that you've created. There's also OneView reporting, which is basically driving reports right from within the E1 application, where you're in a inquiry screen or data browser, and you build a OneView. It's in essence creating a data model on the fly. The BI Publisher Enterprise are some free licenses that you do get from Oracle for JDE Edwards data in its native form only. But with those licenses, it allows you to kind of create data models, and then you can build reports over the web. There are some similarities with OneView and the design elements. They both use what's referred to as a layout editor. I guess I should have read the definition first, but this is where the definition from Oracle on the BI Publisher Enterprise. Oracle BI Publisher is the reporting solution to author, manage, and deliver all your reports and documents easier and faster than traditional reporting tools. Use your web browser or familiar desktop tools to create everything from pixel-perfect customer-facing documents to interactive management reports against practically any data source. View reports online or schedule them and deliver tens of thousands of documents per hour and minimal impact to transactional systems. Again, so with the BI Publisher Enterprise, it all starts from a data model, and then that you can then build reports, and you're building them over the web, and you're distributing them over a web interface, and so you can schedule them, which there's some nice things you can do with that don't currently exist with OneView reporting today. And we'll also show you a glimpse of that in the demo. Business objects, according to SAP, there's kind of like two different things here that we're looking at. Again, business objects, what they were very strong before they acquired Crystal Decisions was in their ad hoc, and the concept of a semantic layer, which business objects calls a universe. And then over the years, they've kind of really tuned that with the functionality called web intelligence, which is in essence a web-based ad hoc report writer. The definition or the explanation on the SAP website: uncover and seize new opportunities anytime, anywhere with our web intelligence software. Get instant answers to your business questions and take action on the fly with fast decision-ready insights from any data source. Our web intelligence software can provide your business users with flexible, self-service access to ad hoc reporting tools and intuitive analytics on the web, desktop, or mobile device. And then the definition for Crystal Reports: understand your business in a whole new way with SAP Crystal Reports. Rely on SAP Crystal Reports to help you gain a clear picture of your business, design and deliver meaningful reports based on data from virtually any source, and give internal users, customers, and partners the information they need in the reporting format of their choice. So again, with this, comparing pixel perfect production, operational, financial management reporting, Crystal Reports is very good at that if you know how to use it properly, and you have something already tailored for your underlying systems like JD Edwards. And the web intelligence, again, on top of this semantic layer, as far as ad hoc and flexibility goes over the web, in our opinion, there's kind of really nothing that really compares with it, but it can be very strong. We'll show you a glimpse of that as well. So that's kind of within the business. So we're trying to keep, again, this session between Power Pivot and BI Publisher and some of this ad hoc stuff within business objects. These are all things that Preferred Strategies provides jump starts for JD Edwards. So we're kind of keeping around that. Obviously, these are all kind of elements of a bigger BI suites. So Power Pivot is just one part of the Microsoft BI suite. BI Publisher is just one part of the Oracle OBIEE suite. It's the reporting element of that. And Web Intelligence and Crystal are just one part of the Business Object Suite. There's other things like dashboards and other types of analytics and Office integration and some other things that we're not going to be in BI Mobile, but we're not going to really focus on those for today's session. So what are these jump starts? For Power Pivot and BI Publisher, what we've done at Preferred Strategies is we've created a suite of database views that structure the data in a way that make it much more usable for the end users. So we're actually taking into account, again, all those data model complexities we mentioned, and creating these starting point, these views that sit right on top of your data source, and they can be right against your real-time transactional data source, or if you're mirroring data or replicating data, it can sit right on top of that. And we also provide content for if you're going down the data warehouse path as well. So these are a set of views that sit on top of the data, and then we've kind of built out models. So within the Power Pivot side, we've then kind of created some of these Power Pivot models that if you're a Microsoft shop and going down the Microsoft full-blown BI route, those can then actually be incorporated into the tabular model, which is the semantic layer of Microsoft. On the BI Publisher side, on top of those database views that sit on the data, we've actually then created data models and then reports on top of that. So depending upon, they definitely, from our standpoint, share the underlying what sits on the data, and then it's just a matter of what models you want to start from for our BI Publisher and Power Pivot offering. For business objects, again, all these different capabilities from dashboards, exploration of data, BI mobile capabilities, Crystal reports, web intelligence for some ad hoc, and then some Microsoft Office integration. These are the underlying capabilities. There's more than that's on the screen here, but these are all things that are supported from our starting point for JD Edwards customers. So we have a suite of 100 plus templates and samples for Crystal, 30 different universes, which are the semantic layer to drive a lot of the other things like dashboards and ad hoc and exploration of data and BI mobile capabilities. So that's kind of in a nutshell there, and here's just a breakdown of what's by the different modules. The general ledger, accounts receivable, accounts payable, sales order, inventory, procurement, enterprise asset management, job costs, contract billing, human resources and payroll, manufacturing, and property management. So I'm not going to get into too much detail on this session, but we've also kind of built out for some of our maintenance paying customers. In this case, it's a table inquiry. So if you need to kind of mine the JDE Edwards data, if you're not, you have a field in the database, but you're not sure what table it's in, or of a table, want to know what the fields are, what the user-defined codes are within that. We've kind of built this utility that sits right on top of the JDE Edwards data model. Okay. All right. So like I said, this is where it's going to get hopefully not too confusing, but we're going to kind of show you a little bit of some different tool sets here. So at the end of this demo, if you were to come back and think about what you saw maybe tomorrow, you'd be maybe swimming. Hopefully we can kind of keep it fairly simple enough. If there's any of these specific products that you are interested in or would like to learn more about, feel free to reach out to us. I think there's a survey that will ask you if there's any interest to get more information about any of these. So feel free to respond to that at the end of the session. Otherwise, we can also answer some questions. And we did a webinar series a few months ago, and we have the links out there, and I have in the slide deck. We have those links, so you can kind of go and watch full-blown webinars on each one of these capabilities. We're just going to touch looking at maybe some financial examples and sales examples across some of these different things that we've spoken about in summary. So we'll start with Microsoft Power Pivot, then we'll get to BI Publisher, and then we'll end with business objects. So like I said, if you have questions along the way, please go ahead and put those into the control panel, and we'll address those at the end. So I'm going to open up Excel 2010 and go ahead and do an open here. And we're going to start, let's start by looking at a sales example, okay? So in this case, you'll notice a few things. In our typical model for Power Pivot will include one tab you'll see, which is going to be like are called slicers. So you may use, if you're familiar with pivot tables in Excel, and just kind of adding some slicers there. We've kind of got, this is what's dynamically kind of filtering the underlying data, so you can kind of quickly filter down your data set to see what's being represented in. In this case, we've got another tab, which is, you've got charts, here's some trends, maybe here's a drill down pivot table, and an ad hoc. Okay. Okay. So we'll come in here and we'll kind of walk through a little bit of this here in a minute, of the different things here. But that's kind of the common. We'll have a charts tab, a pivot table, and then an ad hoc where you're kind of starting from a blank canvas and building something out. But again, I just opened up this spreadsheet, and let's say first I want to refresh this data from my database or JDE Edwards. So you'll notice when you load up Power Pivot, there'll be a Power Pivot menu option in Excel. If I go to my Power Pivot window, so I've got these different tabs of my underlying data, and then I can look at it as a tab view. If I click over here in diagram, it'll actually show me more of a diagram view. So if you've got, different relationships and different things like that, this is kind of looking at that scenario. So if I want to refresh this, right, so this is kind of where the modeling can take place in this engine behind the scenes. And if you're going with a full-blown Microsoft BI, this kind of ports right into and gets migrated into what's called the tabular model of Microsoft, which is their new in-memory kind of semantic layer. If I want to refresh this, I'll go ahead and choose Refresh All, and I have to go ahead and specify a valid JDE login and password. So now it's going out there, querying the database, and then once it's grabbed what it needs and it returns it back to the model. This is what we were talking about. You can consume millions of rows of data inside of this, and then you can then slice and dice that data right directly within Excel. Okay, so this is an example where we've kind of modeled this up, and we'll go ahead and show you. So in essence, with 2010, when you refresh the back end, under the data tab, you kind of have to go to refresh that across all your pivot tables and charts and everything. You have to do another refresh here. That kind of refreshes all your stuff that you've built inside of your report. With 2013, you can actually just refresh it right from the front here, and it'll actually refresh all the way back to the data source. So, but we still have a lot of customers here on 2010. So right now, if we're looking at this, let's say I want to look at 2009 data instead of 2008. Okay. So if I go ahead and click on 2009, it'll update. And so now my underlying, if we look at the charts, now I'm looking at my 2009 activity of extended amount gross profit. Picking down, that's the total. Maybe, mouse over this, you'll see the summary values there by product group, top 10 customers, region, sales rep, channel. Okay. And let's go back if we wanted to look at maybe 2008 and 2009. And looking at 2 years worth of data, again, we can filter right down to one specific product group or one specific customer or region. Again, those will just filter down the underlying tabs that are there. If we want to look at our trends, we can kind of see our year-over-year type trend here. If we're going down, look at the sales drill down, right? We can go ahead within the pivot table and get the breakdown, by just drilling through the pivot table. And if you would click on this and go to Power Pivot and Field List, you'll notice on the right there's a field list, just like a normal pivot table field list, except this is connected back to that model that's behind the scenes. So, whenever that gets updated, then you can go ahead and leverage that here within your reports as well. So then you can go ahead, just if we want to look at this, and I've got this pivot table by, maybe product group. These would be all defined with whatever the names are of your category code. So it could be by market, by brand, by, whatever that is. And if we want to look at this maybe by customer at the top level, we could go ahead and do that. Okay. So now if we look at this, by just dragging that in my pivot table, now I'm seeing my customer at the top, and then within each customer we can then drill in to the underlying pieces, right? So that's what's really powerful about this ability to just do some ad hoc on the fly. Go to the last tab here, like a sales ad hoc. In this case, I click on this blank pivot table. Again, this tab, would include this pivot table ready to be used. And let's say we were to go in here and grab, in this case, we'll grab, let's say a sales cat code. Okay. So we've got the sales cat code 1, let's say, and then we want to look at that. Then get some year-to-date, maybe our current year-to-date extended amount. And we'll look at this, the gross profit, and maybe gross profit percent. Okay. So you can also notice here we've got current year. So this, the name in terms of, current year, year-to-date, extended amount, cost, gross profit, quantities, same thing for prior year. So these are all the time-based measures, are the things that we've kind of built in these calculations within the models. So you can quickly just drag things into your report. If we go over here and I want to, let's say, add a chart next to that, if I just go ahead and click on somewhere in that pivot table, and we can go ahead and do a pivot chart, go ahead and drag that here. In essence, now we can go ahead and create a chart that's right next to that, that's dynamically changing with that. Go here and let's say we'll hide the the field buttons. Now, if we go ahead and make a change to this pivot table, and let's say we wanted to see within each of these product groups, we want to see a breakdown by the different customers. So we can go ahead and grab like our ship to address name here. Okay, so we got that breakdown. We'll go ahead and just collapse that. All right, so now we've got the table. We'll go ahead and drill into that, and you'll see the breakdown in the chart as well. So this is where, again, you can just duplicate the tab. You can kind of start building out reports. Again, and that's connected in the back end to refresh, right at the data source. So anyhow, that's Power Pivot. This is a sales example. We'll kind of show you on the financial side of things an example there as well. Okay. So if I go ahead and do an open up a GL example. Okay. So in this example, let's say I'm looking at, my financials by division, department, company, business unit, object account. I'll go ahead and click on, let's say maybe period 9. So obviously I go back and just hit refresh on the back end. It'll refresh this data. Again, the nice thing about it is once you've refreshed the data and it's now have everything that's reflected for that, by just changing these slices, you can kind of get different months analysis right there on the fly. So in this case, on the financials, here's our breakdown: revenue, gross profit, overheads. And if we want to look at that just for industrial, we can click on industrial, and you can go back and see that reflected there. Now we're looking at just industrial. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. And again, we have that, again, just like the other one, drill down tab. We've got a pivot table. In this case, we've got, actuals and budgets, revenue, gross profit, net income. You can drill into the pivot table. We've done a couple of things here to show you what you can do, taking it to the next level from a reporting standpoint as well. So if I go here to this income statement, you'll notice here that we've got a traditional P&L. We've got revenue, cost, gross profit, SG&A, other income, all the way down to like net income. So you're getting these kind of these hierarchy roll-ups, kind of those row-based reports that that typically are native to kind of the financial reporting side of things. We got month-to-date actuals, budget, year-to-dates, as percentage of revenue. If we drill into this, again, you have these breakdowns. So in this case, we've got this going down, looking at our different object accounts within cost of sale. Then within each object account, we've got the business unit. What if we just, again, wanted to see this P&L with the business unit first and then the object, right? Just a matter of dragging it into your pivot table. And now you can kind of see within cost of sales, I can get that broken down. So you can go ahead and drag something from a business unit cat code and drag it right into the canvas. So you can kind of see how to slice and dice the data differently very, very quickly and easily. Here's an example of a consolidating view. So we could see our different maybe companies consolidating across the top, looking at year-to-date. Click on quarter-to-date. It's now going to go ahead and change the data. We'll now see representation of quarter-date activity. Change our budgets or ledger types if you want. Here's like a quarterly example. So quarter 1, 2, 3, 4. If we go back over here and update this for period 12, and then go back, we should see actually now our quarterly report be updated with 4 quarters, year-to-date, total year budget, remaining budget, and variance. Here's our monthly view, so you kind of more of like and we've actually also been able to do things like rolling, 4 quarters, rolling 12 months, things like that. And then, like we saw before, there's an ad hoc tab as well. You can go ahead and just build in, your report. Now you'll notice here on these, we've got a lot of canned objects here. So balance forwards, current actuals defined. Period buckets, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12, quarterly, monthly. We've got these date-based ones, so current year, inception to date, actuals and budgets, month to date, quarter to date, total year, year to dates for current year and prior year. And then also things that are account specific, like predefined calculations for gross profit and revenue and net income and overheads and stuff like that, and labor. So these are kind of some of the canned objects that are delivered. And then so this is all in Excel. So again, if you're looking to leverage Excel as the tool of choice, this is extremely powerful and it allows you to automate and make sure the integrity of the information that's being analyzed is much greater than exporting something to Excel or having some company macros that need to constantly be updated to get data in there. So the Power Pivot kind of allows you to connect and supports all 3 database types that JD Edwards runs on. So if you're on SQL Server, DB2, or Oracle, we provide models and views for all 3 of those database types. So the next thing I want to show real quick was, okay, how do you take then, if you were looking at this and wanted to leverage, so this was in Excel, but the web distribution of Power Pivot, if you're going down that kind of that Microsoft direction, is SharePoint. So I just opened up SharePoint here. If I want to go ahead and look at just how you can, these render, this is actually updated to a SharePoint, to support in 2013 here. Let me go back and grab financials. You can also look at these as a list view instead of the table view or the folder view here. General accounting. Maybe we'll open up that same report, and you'll notice here, now this is over the web, so I could actually view these over the web. I can drill down as I drill into one of these. Again, I can see the breakdown here over the web, and if I right-click on this, you'll notice there's the field list. So again, if I wanted to go in here, and let's say I want to remove this breakdown by object account, I can remove that field. I can go up here to, let's say, grab a category code and just drag that right down to my rows. and see again now. So again, you have some of that same ad hoc capability right there over the web as well. So very powerful in that nature. And then there's also other things we're not getting into today that's run on top of the same Power Pivot modeling, what's called Power View rather than Power Pivot. It allows you kind of starting from a blank canvas over the web to kind of start dragging, dropping, and building your content there. So this is Power Pivot. Again, the web delivery of that would be SharePoint. Like I said, if you're interested in more details about this, be happy to follow up with you, or we have webinars, recordings from webinars we did recently as well. So now I'm going to switch gears. We're going to kind of take off our Microsoft hat for a minute and get into looking at BI Publisher. Let me see. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and log into BI Publisher. Now, again, this is the BI Publisher Enterprise. So these are licenses for JD Edwards that you have free licenses of these if you're going against the natural schema of JD Edwards. What that means is that if you want to use this against custom tables, that would require a basically a non-restricted license. However, this is a great way if you already, or if you have OBIEE as a standard in your company and want to leverage some of the more like real-time reporting against JD Edwards, this is the perfect fit for that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to kind of show you a couple just quick snippets here. So if I go ahead and we're going to open up like a management operating statement. So if we go here like general accounting, and we'll open up this financial reporting package. Okay. So you notice these different tabs across the top. So like an Excel spreadsheet has those different worksheets within the workbook. Same kind of thing here. You kind of build multiple layouts, analyzing the same set of data differently on different tabs. So here we've got, let's say, an income statement by company, where it's at the company roll-up, and then the breakdown, revenue, and then by object account. Maybe instead of our rows being by object account, we want to see those as business units. We can go ahead and see that here. Here's, again, the rows are business unit. If I go over here to like an IS by business unit, now we're getting down to, let's say, within a business unit, and the rows where now we're looking at, more of a each unique account. So at this level, we actually can get a very high performance drill path to the general ledger. So if I wanted to go ahead and drill into, let's say, this report, let me find a good thing to drill into. It has good sample data. All right. So in this case, let's say I'm looking at $8,000 of rent expense. And I want to see what makes up the transactions of this summary P&L or operating report. If I go ahead and drill on that line item, it's actually going to go ahead, pass over values that were associated with that summary account to the general ledger and pull back on the screen the general ledger transactions. Okay, so in essence, this is the GL detail associated with what that summary account was. So this is all, in essence, in kind of real-time drilling that we're doing here. If I wanted to go into this and see the details of this invoice for storage unit rental from Allen Supplies for $800, was a check been cut yet, or was a discount on that? We can go ahead and drill into that. In this case, now I'm looking at the AP detail from JD Edwards, and here's the check number, and here's the discount. What's still open on that purchase order? All right, we can go ahead and drill into that. And now we've got details from purchasing as well. Okay. So that's just walking through drilling down from a financial report. These are all sample. This is a sample report. That's one of our packages with those drill paths. We've defined those drill type reports for BI Publisher. So which is nice. Unlike OneView reporting, where you're driving everything from the JD Edwards application, you could still do hyperlinks from JD Edwards to call these reports as well. So you could actually kick these reports off from JD Edwards and have them open up over the browser. But the fact that you can schedule these and so and then deliver these to managers that may not log into JD Edwards or go into the JD application at all, provides a lot of value for getting this in the hands of users, again, that aren't JDE typical users. So we have a couple other tabs here. Here's a balance sheet summary We're looking at more rather than a P&L. In this case, you might be looking at a balance sheet. You can see here assets, current assets, non-current assets, total assets. This is kind of summary, but if we want to see the breakdown by account as well, I can go to the Detail tab. Here's, in essence, a detailed balance sheet. And in this example, right, just like we drilled before, we want to see what makes up this dollars here in Bear Creek, National Bank. I can drill into that just like we did the other and get down to the general ledger transaction. So that's in a nutshell kind of a sample of BI Publisher. Given our sake of time, and if anybody wants to see more detail of this, let us know. We'd be happy to schedule some time together. I will show you one other quick example on sales, more of like an interactive type view, more graphical kind of view of data. I can go too crazy with it, but if I go ahead and we'll show you in edit mode here. So this is in essence an example over kind of the JDE sales side of things. Just like before, if you had multiple tabs, you'd have these different layouts here. In this case, we've only got one in this example. I'm going to choose edit this. So you'll see this kind of in edit mode. So you've got, when you build out these BI Publisher models, you're actually kind of lay out a grid, and then you drop into that grid the different elements. These are lists at the top, which are kind of those dynamic, kind of like the slicers that we saw in the Power Pivot example. Oracle calls them lists. And you can have different charts with different objects specified in them. If I click on that, this is going by the GL date year, extended amount, maybe breaking by sold to customer. And then you can go ahead and let's view these in an interactive viewer. So in this case, I can see the breakdown customer. I don't unfortunately have my product family. I don't have a bunch of different breakdown here in my sample data, but you kind of get the gist of it. So if you actually were to drill into this, by just clicking on these lists, you'll see it just filter down the underlying data based on that. Okay, so and again, you can go in, and I think this this is the browser, and I probably need to check conformity with updated browsers as well. But I know if you're doing this with Internet Explorer instead of Firefox, you can kind of just mouse over this. It'll give you and show you the values. You can click on that. It'll actually create an automatic filter. If I clicked on target here, create a filter on that. So it's kind of that interactive view of the data that's kind of a nice kind of graphical layer at JD Edwards information. So just a couple examples of a couple of scenarios there on the BI Publisher side. And lastly, we're going to go ahead and show from a demonstration perspective was the business objects. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'll log in here. This is the web console for business objects. Do that again. Okay. So like the BI Publisher Enterprise or OBIEE, where you've got this web BI platform, same thing applicable here with business objects. This is the web interface that kind of is that portal that people access all of the analytics through and reporting. So if I go into this, we'll start by looking at a simple actual versus budget report. We go ahead and view this. Right, so now we're looking at this specific report. We can go ahead and refresh it, change the parameters, get the data refreshed. Also, like the other, this is a drillable report as well. So if I want to see what makes up, our overage here, the 300,000, based on what's making my actuals here, we can drill into this. Again, these are all hyperlinks. They're all live drills, just like on the BI Publisher, going down from summary to GL. In this case, that's how we wanted to get into, the address information. We drill into that. Here's our information from the address book. We want to go in here and look at, let's say, an invoice. And we do have customers that actually drill from this to the actual scanned documents that are, let's say, an invoice or a PO or something like that. So you can go ahead and link and relate that into your current reporting as well. Let's say we want to look at the GL distribution of this document. We can drill in that. Again, so the idea is, you're kind of allowing users the ability to self-service drill through reports. Let me go back here. All right. And let's go ahead and just show you another example here on the sales side. So let's go ahead and I'm going to start by looking at, there's a couple different things on top of this kind of semantic layer business objects. You know, what I'm going to show you right now takes 5 minutes to build once you have that model in place and we deliver those for JD Edwards. This is called Explore, so it's actually, again, sits right on top of that semantic layer. And what's nice about this tool is that it's kind of predefined interface. So all you do to build this is you define what measures you want to analyze, and then what are your different dimensions you want to slice and dice the data by. So in this case, I'm looking at, I have to go down here and choose extended amount, current year, year to date. I can see that broken down by region or customer type or sales rep or customer or year, just whatever you're just slicing and dicing the data by. And then if I wanted to see that graphically compared current year versus prior year. Okay. All right, so now I can see my current year, prior year. If I mouse over that, gives me what the values are. What if I want to also compare that to my current year gross profit? Okay. So in this case, you know, maybe from this, if I wanted to go ahead and filter down on Central, I can go ahead and click on Central up here to see what makes up that $1 million there. And now it's going to go ahead and give me my breakdown by the next piece, which is, you know, customer type. So I can see actually industrial being the biggest contributor of that. You can also go in and filter down, let's say, and change the breakdown here by customer type. And drill in, just double clicking on the chart, it'll create an automatic filter on that as well. Now what if I want to see this as a pie chart instead of, right, within that customer, let's go ahead and see our breakdown by, you know, our actual customer. Okay, so here we can kind of see our split of our current year and prior year and what that revenue was. And what if we want to analyze sales as a trend? Okay, and when I'm looking at a trend for industrial, I want to see the breakdown of maybe our, not our year, our month, GL date. And let's go ahead and put these in order from 1 to 12 so we can kind of see, here's our trend for industrial. What if we're actually looking at just for Jason Lee, one sales rep, and how's he doing in industrial? All right, so now I can see how Jason Lee is doing in industrial. Get rid of industrial, look at Jason Lee overall. All right, so now we can kind of see Jason Lee's sales trending throughout the year. Okay. So that's kind of an Explorer. Like I said, the reason why I like to show that, it kind of provides a just click and ad hoc functionality on the fly on something that, again, so quick to set up, you know, 5 minutes to get there. Then another example just to show you, and this is the last kind of thing we show here on the business object side, is just a quick ad hoc. So, you know, within the application, go down here to Web Intelligence. It'll ask you, okay, select a universe. You choose your functional area that you want to build a report for, and then you're going to get exposed to all the objects that are in that universe, drag them into a canvas, and then go. But sometimes people might want to start from more like a template. So if I go in here to this ad hoc and choose Modify, this is in essence where you've kind of, someone's already gone in and defined kind of the most typical used fields, and then maybe just kind of already has some headers and footers, kind of a more of like a logical starting point. So you kind of have some standardization on what's being built. So in this case, this wants to refresh. If I go ahead and look at my list of companies, it says, okay, let's go ahead and look at just for company 1. So now it's going to go out there, refresh the data from the database. Again, this is a universe that's connected right at real-time, you know, transactional JD data, brings it back, and now we can go ahead and slice and dice the data. So you notice this table here, these are, what's beautiful about this tool is it automatically aggregates data. Okay, so if I want to look at, let's say, region, and drag region into my grid, it'll give me 1 row for each region. Now I could have 1 million rows of data that represent region. It's going to go ahead and give me that. If I want to look at maybe current year, year to date, okay, and I want to compare that with my prior year, year to date. Right. If I want to insert a sum on that to get a total, I can just click on that, go to Analysis, Functions, and choose a sum. So now I've got a sum on that. What if I want to see my sales reps within each region, right? If I just drag sales rep, well, just look at sales rep first. If I look at, okay, here's my total year-over-year extended amount by sales rep. What if I want region and then sales rep within each region? I go ahead and just drag in region back into the grid. Again, it creates a unique set there. If we want to go ahead, right-click on this and do set as a section. Okay. And in this case, within each region, well, what if I want this by sales or customer instead of sales rep? Let me just drag that in. So real quick, and looking at the top 5 customers. So if we go in here, click on the customer, go do a ranking, and let's look at our top 5 customers based on gross profit, based on extended amount, or in this case, maybe extended amount, current year, year to date. Okay, for customer name. So now we're going to get our top 5 customers by region. If we want to copy this block of data, go ahead and hold Control. I'm just going to bring this data block to the right. Right-click on this, choose Turn Into, and we'll turn that into a column chart. So this is, again, the web-based ad hoc report writer called Web Intelligence. We can go ahead and give this a name, region, or it's a customer region. Okay, and if we want to go ahead and duplicate this report, we can duplicate this tab. In this case, let's say we wanted basically customers by sales rep. So we go back here and grab our sales rep, drag it right on top of that. So now we've got, in essence, when you do these sections, it kind of creates that group tree, so you can actually go ahead and navigate through the report based on the group tree as well. Okay. So this is kind of, again, like that whole concept of a different tab in a spreadsheet. You kind of query the data once, slice and dice it different on different tabs, and then you can save this back, and people can go ahead and if you do a save as, save it right back and schedule it and run it and view it. Okay. So like I said, if you want to see more of this, if I want to make a change or add some objects from the universe, if I click on this edit, this takes me back to a query where this is actually all the fields available to me as a user, and I can go ahead and grab whatever I need and just drag it into the canvas, and then now I can kind of leverage that. Okay, given the sake of time, we'll go ahead and I think as much as we're going to do for live demo. I've got a couple more slides to come back to. Okay. So as far as how to compare and contrast, and it's so difficult to do this because there's a lot of variables that come into it. Again, we're kind of under the assumption that these are comparing our 3 jump starts from a reporting and ad hoc perspective. We'll kind of speak briefly after this about the all-consuming BI capabilities, but looking at Microsoft Power Pivot, Oracle BI Publisher, and Business Objects just from a more of a reporting and ad hoc on their merits. From barriers to entry, so we've got here these little, if you can't tell what the images are, these are thumbs up. So the more thumbs up, the better. The less thumbs up. So we kind of just gave everybody anywhere from 1 to 3, kind of so rating each one of these. So barriers to entry, again, Power Pivot, if you're going to do it from Excel, connect it to data, and refresh it right there using Excel as the fashion and the format. I mean, it's like I said, it's free. It's the quickest and easiest way to get in, and if people are comfortable with an Excel. There's not all this extra layers of stuff that have to be added to the mix. So that's why Power Pivot is the lowest. And then the BI Publisher, you get it for free with Oracle. Now it does require you, the BI Publisher Enterprise, to put it on a server, which then adds some now complexity to the mix. And then Business Objects, again, if you're going to utilize the Business Objects, you really need to kind of have that web platform. So the reason why it's kind of less than the Publisher is that you don't get it for free. However, they do have some very next to object cost. There are some real cost-effective bundles of the Business Objects software that are targeted towards a kind of mid-market organization. So it's not just software that can be used by multi-billion-dollar organizations. From a cost standpoint, again, Power Pivot, free plugin, Excel. There's not really any of the upfront costs on that side. It's just a matter of how do you connect it to JD Edwards. That's where our BI Quick Launch comes in. Again, BI Publisher, you kind of get some free licenses of that as well from Oracle. Business Objects, last. From a performance standpoint, we've actually got really good performance. Definitely on Business Objects, we've got very large customers on very large data sets, and we've also done a lot of performance benchmarking with the Power Pivot against very large data sets. The problem with BI Publisher is, because it creates in that data model, we didn't get into details, but it kind of creates this XML output, and that can be very detailed. And so the more data you're consuming in a data model, the larger that file gets, depending upon what browser you've got, and whether it's 32-bit, 64-bit. I mean, that might lend to some issues. So of those three, we've just seen business objects and Power Pivot just seem to perform better than what we've seen on some of the BI Publisher stuff. Ad hoc query in Excel. If that's your avenue, that's where you want your Power users to be doing their development, Power Pivot's perfect. If they're already familiar with pivot tables, they're going to love it. And then, the reason on business objects we think is next. Business objects does have some Office integration that allows you to kind of leverage Excel as the interface, connected through that same semantic layer as well. And I know BI Publisher is growing in that area, but the still kind of took a third place on that. Ad hoc over the web. We showed you a little bit of that in Power Pivot. However, business objects, the web intelligence is such a powerful tool. So web-based ad hoc and integrating, all these can integrate JDE with security and row security, and we didn't get into that. But so from that standpoint, definitely we like that in business objects. Second to that, kind of what you saw with Power Pivot and Power View, you can do over the web with Excel services and SharePoint if you're using SharePoint. If not, then you got some options there with BI Publisher. For production reporting, again, this is kind of where the Crystal comes into play under the business objects umbrella. And the Crystal's got some people like it, some people don't like it. We've been very successful, and our customers have been extremely successful with Crystal. And there's really, when it comes down to any requirement, seems like if you can't get it with some of the other ad hoc tools, Crystal can do it if you know how to do it. And so very powerful. We feel from a production reporting, that's still probably the, at least from a functionality, flexibility, with our Jumpstart is the best option for that. BI Publisher, again, that's where you're kind of getting more into, pixel perfect options there. You kind of lay out these layout grids, drag objects into it. Now, for Power Pivot, say that's more of an ad hoc tool. So when you get in, you saw P&Ls that we did, and you can build those types of reports. But for pixel perfect reporting, you're probably going to be looking at Microsoft's reporting services, which would be more kind of comparable to something like a BI Publisher or Crystal Reports. Web-based report distribution, again, business objects, and we didn't show it. Both business objects and BI Publisher, you've got the ability to go ahead and burst reports and create publications and packages that way and burst things out. Seems like Microsoft, you're delivering it through the SharePoint. They're definitely getting there. And if you already have SharePoint and that's your preferred delivery mechanism, again, that lends well to Microsoft. But kind of felt like the business objects and BI Publisher are really well there. The semantic layer, again, the universe of the business objects, they founded the concept of a BI semantic layer when they built the universe 20-some odd, 30 years ago. And so it seems to be the most strong of all the different kind of layers that we've seen. This Power Pivot and the tabular model is something that, it's the in-memory kind of semantic layer within Microsoft, the newer one. They have OLAP, and then now they've got the tabular, which is in essence is kind of Power Pivot. And that seems to be very promising as well. One of the differences with, we're looking at, when we talk about BI Publisher semantic layer, it's really those data models. If you're doing OBIEE, the semantic layer wouldn't be a data model. It would actually be what's called the RPD, or the semantic layer there. And when you're talking about that semantic layer in Business Objects Universe, those are both based on what objects you select in a query. It adjusts the SQL that pulls data back from a database. So whereas the Power Pivot and the tabular model, you kind of set up your relationships, and it's basically pulling all data within that model. So if you just only wanted to see the data aggregated by, let's say, one, or see one category code and a customer and an amount, it doesn't change the SQL that hits the database. That's refreshing kind of much in that in-memory engine, consuming a lot more data that you can then slice and dice very quickly and easily but it's not changing the SQL that hits the database based on what an end user is querying on. I don't know if that made a lot of sense, but anyways. Reliance on IT, for Power Pivot, again, because of all the low barriers to entry, it can be run right in Excel, can integrate back. There's not really much IT involvement to get started if you have a jumpstart like our BI Quick Launch. So we felt that was the lowest. Business Objects probably second, and then BI Publisher kind of third on that. Again, given if you had to start, but if you actually had to have your IT build everything, I mean, these could all be pretty big efforts. So now looking at Complete BI, and it's kind of, this is not necessarily, I'm going to take everything here, this is kind of our opinions. Within Microsoft, Oracle, and Business Objects, again, we don't have the complete solution across Microsoft and Oracle yet as like we do on the Business Objects side. We've got much more content for Business Objects than the others, but we've played with all three of them and have a fairly good sense of the capabilities. So I think the completeness of the solution, definitely Business Objects would still take the cake. I think Oracle has also made some very large strides. Microsoft is catching up very quickly. Again, I think their strength is leveraging the fact that almost every ad hoc user wants Excel, and that's kind of going to become part of Excel over the web is going to be, I think, the direction there. From a cost standpoint, again, Microsoft, the way that they've licensed so you can get into the BI elements by just, it could be in essence depending upon your version of the SQL Server and or SharePoint, and so it just seems to make sense sometimes. So if you're kind of a Microsoft technology organization, obviously running JD Edwards, Microsoft could be very appealing. And then Business Objects, there are some low-cost bundles that I think are actually more competitive than what you can get from Oracle. So that's maybe a good option there. And then Oracle, obviously, I think is going to be the most expensive when you really get into it. Reliance on IT, again, I would think that if you're looking at the full scope, it seemed like, in our opinion, Microsoft and Oracle are a little more IT-centric from a support perspective, at least with our customer base. And again, obviously, we're involved in helping customers through any issues. And then so that's kind of where we kind of rank Business Objects the best there, and then Microsoft second, and then Oracle third on that. Like I said, if you want to view or you want a copy of the slide deck, just go ahead and in the surveys request it. We can kind of send you out a copy. There's some links here to some our website that has our previous webinar recordings if you want to look at those, and we'll be happy to send that to you. And then any questions. So